If the Quad were to become a collective security alliance, you, as our country's chief architect of our foreign policy, are you going to make the Philippines as a member of the Quad? Why and why not?
Senator Marcos?
Yes, I think any of these agreements we should, of course, encourage as long as it is very clear to us what is the advantage to the Philippines. What the professor just mentioned was she spoke about the great powers trying to carve out spheres of influence. I reject that model that I believe no longer applies in the geopolitics of the modern world. The old Cold War thinking. We have to apply our own way.
Isa na namang reaction po ang ating gagawin ngayon. Masasabi kong napaka-informative nito at ito po'y isang presidential debate na sinit po ng SMNI. So, isang napakagandang debate ito, mala world class po ang standard na ginawa ng SMNI dito. Of course, isi-share ko po dito sa inyo kung paano sinagot ni Bongbong Marcos yung mga tanong ni Professor Clarita Carlos. So, mala Miriam Defensio Santiago ang tanungan dito. Napaka-excited po to. Gusto kong makita nyo, gusto kong panoorin nyo kung paano sinagot ni Bongbong Marcos yung mga sagot ni Professor Clarita Carlos. So, dito nyo makikita ang bagsik ng mga sagot ni Bongbong Marcos. Okay, so unang mapanood na rin sa video ito yung plataforma ni Bongbong Marcos tungkol nga po sa mga problema ng ating bansa. So, ipapakita ko sa inyo bago tayo pumunta. Guys, sa mga hindi pa po nakasubscribe sa aking channel, ayan, pakisubscribe nyo. Pakihit na rin din ang notification bell para ma-notify ko kayo sa mga susunod na video. Okay, dito sa unang video, ipinakita ni Bongbong yung kanyang plataforma kung ano ang dapat niyang gagawin at yung kanyang mga sagot tungkol po sa problema ng ating bansa. Ayan, dito makikita niyo yung tanungan ni Professor Clarita Carlos. Ayan, mala tagisan po ng talino ang nangyayari dito. Kaya panoorin po natin. Okay.
Gentlemen, your opening statement will answer the question, what will be your key priority programs if elected president? And how will you realize these in the next 6 years? Next, Senator Bongbong Marcos, 2 minutes.
Maraming salamat sa lahat na nabigyan kami ng pagkakataon upang pag-usapan ang ating mga problema na hinaharap. Sa tagal ng aking pagsiservisyo, ngayon lang po ako nakakita ng ganitong krisis na hinaharap ng ating bansa ngayon. At pagka tinatanong ko sa taong bayan kung ano ang kanilang kauna-unahang pangangailangan, ang laging sagot sa akin ay trabaho, trabaho, trabaho. Kaya't dapat natin magdagdag ng trabaho para mabigyan ng mas magandang buhay ang mga naghihingalo ngayon dahil sa pandemya, dahil sa krisis na dala rin ng pandemya. Sa aking palagay, ang mga sektor na ito ay unang-una yung MSMEs, yung Micro, Small, Medium Scale Enterprises. Dahil 95.5% ng ating negosyo ay nasa kategoryang yan, 62% ng employment ng mga employer ay nasa kategoryang yan. Kaya at bukod pa ron, sa pag-aaral ko, nakita ko na sa bawat gastos ng gobyerno, malakas ang balik ng pag-create ng trabaho, dadami ang trabaho. Pangalawa, agrikultura. Kailangan natin patibayin ang agrikultura natin, pagandahin uli natin ang agricultural sector natin. Dahil napabayaan ito na matagal at nakita nung pagdating ng pandemya kung paano tayo naghirap dahil umaasa na lang tayo sa importasyon. Bukod pa ron ay maraming trabaho ulit ang may bibigay kapag tayo ay nag-invest sa agrikultura. Pangatlo, isa sa pinakamabilis sa aking nakikita na industriya na makapagbigay ng trabaho ay industriya ng turismo. ang industriya ng turismo ay madali kasi gawin natin ito para sa ating mga kababayan. At sa ilalim nito ay ang ating infrastruktura, kasama na dyan ang digital infrastructure para pagandahin ang ating internet, palawakin
Senator
ang ating
Marcos,
bandwidth,
the
at
time is up na
pagmurahin
po.
ang ating internet service.
The first question will come from UP Professor Dr. Clarita Carlos.
Candidates who had both the political commitment and the political courage to be part of this conversation.
Ayan guys. So dito inilatag ni Bongbong Marcos kung ano yung kanyang mga plataforma. So dito nga sinabi niya trabaho, trabaho, trabaho. So pangalawa, agrikultura at saka yung ating infrastructure. Sinabi ni Bongbong Marcos kung paano ang kanyang dapat gagawin sa ating bansa kasi sa panahon nga ngayon, lalo na itong pandemic, marami pong pagbabago sa ating kasalukuyang dinaranas ng ating bansa ngayon. Kaya, napakaganda ang sinabi po dito ni Bongbong Marcos, ayusin po niya yung ating mga yung trabaho, agrikultura, at yung infrastructure. Mayroon pang isa. So, napakaganda ang kanyang plataforma dito. Alam naman natin na yung trabaho ngayon sa Pilipinas ay napakahirap po talaga. Lutas niya yung mga problema sa ating bansa. Okay. Dito naman sa pangalawa, dito malalaman natin yung tagisan ng talino between Professor Clarita Carlos and Bongbong Marcos. Dito po guys, patunghayan nyo kung paano sinagot ni Bongbong Marcos yung Defensor Santiago na tanong ni Professor Clarita Carlos.
Research and expertise is on foreign policy and defense and security, so my first question will be within the rubric of these issue areas. All right. If the Quad were to become a collective security alliance, you, as our country's chief architect of our foreign policy, are you going to make the Philippines as a member of the Quad? Why and why not?
Senator Marcos?
Yes, I think any of these agreements we should, of course, encourage as long as it is very clear to us what is the advantage to the Philippines. What the professor just mentioned was she spoke about the great powers trying to carve out spheres of influence. I reject that model that I believe no longer applies in the geopolitics of the modern world. The old Cold War thinking. We have to apply our own way. And so it really would depend on what is inside, or what those agreements say that the Philippines what will be doing and what those other partners of ours will be doing for the Philippines. And once again, because we shouldn't think of the old Cold War system, we should always think in terms of the fine line that the Philippines has to tread in all our foreign policy decisions.
But if Mr. Marcos, if you reject the concept of spheres of influence, does that mean you're going to scuttle the Mutual Defense Treaty when you become President of the Republic?
By no means.
To the United States of America as a defense ally?
No, by no means. The relationship with the United States, our special relationship with the United States is not something that we can treat, be cavalier about. It is a very important one. And it has stood us in good stead for over 100 years. And that, I think, will never disappear from the Philippine psyche, the idea and the memory of what the United States did for us and fought with us in the last war. And so that is a specific part of our foreign policy. But then as we approach, we know that we are a hot spot right now. The West Philippine Sea is a hot spot in geopolitics right now. And that is why we still have to find our own line in terms of all of these arrangements. Except the one simple principle is that we will not cede 1 square inch of the Philippines to any country.
Karen, do I have time for one more follow-up with Mr. Marcos?
Yes, Professor Carlos.
Yeah. Okay. If that is the stance that you have taken, Mr. Marcos, suppose you have a situation where China is trying to, take us in, embrace us within its sphere of influence. How would you react as our chief architect of our foreign policy?
Once again, in terms of specifically to China, the correct approach still seems to be one of engagement. And no matter what the superpowers are trying to do, we have to work in the interest of the Philippines, and we cannot allow ourselves to be part of the foreign policy of any other country. And we have to have our own foreign policy. So again, whatever the superpowers do, we as a highly strategic geographic having a highly strategic geographical location in the world, really have to walk that very, very fine line between these great powers who I always say, these are great powers. We are in between. If they sneeze at the same time, we disappear from the map. And that is something that we always have to keep in mind.
Thank you.
Our next question will be coming from Attorney Rolex Suplico. Attorney, your question.
Ayan guys. So, siguro naman narinig nyo kung ano yung mga sagot ni Bongbong Marcos. Napakaganda yung sagot dito ni Bongbong Marcos tungkol doon sa kung saan ba daw tayo papanig kung tayo hahanap ng kakampi o sa malalaking bansa. So, ang sinasabi dito ni Bongbong Marcos na hindi tayo pwedeng nasa gitna ng mga superpower. Kasi nga, kung magkaputukan, ay mabubura tayo sa mapa. Mabubura ang ating bansa kasi napakaliit natin. So, ganun guys, napakaganda po ang tanong dito ni Professor Clarita Carlos. Ayan guys, so kung ano ang take nyo dito, panoorin nyo na lang, ilagay ko na lang din sa description yung original na video mula po sa SMNI. Okay guys, maraming salamat sa inyong panonood. Bye.